Hey, welcome back to the Legacy Podcast. Oh shit, I'm dead. What will people say about me when I'm gone? And I wanted to welcome my good friend, Kat O'Sullivan, because you talk about not just legacy, like what happens after, but you talk about living your legacy. So you are actually the perfect guest for this podcast.
Yeah, I have to tell you, Lou, I love the "oh shit, I'm dead" because it really gives us that kind of needed kick in the butt to
Hmm.
face the awkward reality that we're all heading there eventually.
Yeah.
And so here's another "oh shit" moment. Oh my God, what if it happens sooner than later? Let's be real.
Yeah.
Most of us don't sweat our legacy until we hit that age when we think, oh, shit, I'm
Yeah.
not 20 anymore. And that's
Right.
the cue to panic, right? Then it's
Exactly.
now what?
Yeah. And that's exactly why I wanted to talk with you about, because again, I think your message is so on point because oftentimes we don't think about our legacy unless we hit a milestone birthday or we have a
Right.
health scare and we think, oh, what are people going to say? Not just what are people going to say about us when we're gone, but what did our life really mean? So talk about a little bit
Exactly.
about how you approach the living your legacy.
Yeah, it's a spoiler alert. Your legacy isn't some grand gesture that you leave behind when you're gone. Like most people think of legacy as like how much money, property, memorabilia, the
Statues,
things.
libraries.
Yeah,
Right.
things that we're going to leave behind when we're gone, but it's actually crafted in the small choices that we make every single day.
Mhm.
It could be something like as simple as not losing your cool at the jerk who just cut you off,
Yeah.
or reaching out to an old friend with a simple hi, or finally doing that thing that you've been putting off that would really make a difference in your life and maybe in other people's lives, but
Hmm.
we just never get to it.
Yeah.
And the reality is every choice counts. Now that's a wake up call.
It is.
Because,
When you think
like
about
here's
all the
the
choices.
question. How many of today's choices scream your true legacy? So many of us are caught up in the chaos of life and like we rarely stop, if ever, to ponder our legacy. It's like we're on autopilot and we're like zooming ahead 100
Hmm.
million miles an hour. But here's the kicker. Are we
Hmm.
even headed in the right direction?
Right.
It's
Yeah,
humbling.
it
It's
is. And
humbling when we actually stop. So whether we like it or not, our legacy is unfolding with every decision, every moment. So let's face it, no better time than now to
yeah.
hit pause, take a
Hmm.
breath, take a big breath, have the courage to put our foot on the brakes long enough to figure out, okay, what matters to me now?
Hmm.
Not in the past, but right now, what is most important to me? What do I really want to be known for?
Hmm.
And to get clear on what we want to stand for today and what that looks like in action.
Hmm.
And then I'm known for the let's make a hell yes commitment
Yeah.
to live that legacy wholeheartedly and
Mhm.
unapologetically.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Kat did a big relocation from the US to Mexico. Was this what drove this decision? Did you have a big aha moment? Or?
Yes. When COVID hit and everything came to a stop, I was
Mhm.
guilty. I was going a million miles an hour.
Mhm.
And, what I was doing was good. It was making a difference in terms of my work with my clients, doing
Yeah.
consulting and training and coaching and facilitating. And even as I say all that, I'm like, you know, and I'd been doing it for a long time. And for a long time, it was really meaningful. But when everything came to a halt,
Mhm.
number one, I realized I was completely burned out. And closely after that, realizing I don't want to do that anymore. That was the wake up call,
Yeah.
along with the fact that my husband's 18 years older than me. there was this reality that if we don't change things up, because he's been retired for a long time, he had a life, I had my work, never the twain shall meet. It's like, how the hell are we going to create a life where I could make a significant shift in what I was doing, as in finally write my book,
Yeah.
do speaking, do things that would actually expand the reach and the impact of what I'd been doing. And like
Yep.
all the lessons that I've been learning along the way, how
Mhm.
can I impart those to other people?
Yeah.
And let me tell you, living outside of Los Angeles, being able to make a huge shift like that and having a life, not just work, seemed impossible
Mhm.
financially. And this is where, for me, I have these kind of two magical questions, and maybe this will help some of your listeners.
Yeah.
Like when you're thinking about, oh, I really want to do this, but it feels impossible, that we can ask ourselves two magical questions. Number one, what if it is possible? What if impossible is just a story we're telling ourselves? Next, follow it up with, what am I not seeing yet that
Mm.
could make it possible? And that yet, those three letters are so powerful, because what we're saying is, it is possible. I just haven't figured it out yet. And being open in that way, shifting our mindset in that way, it is magical. Like for us, when we made that decision that we were going to do something, but we didn't know how.
Yeah.
But I said, what if it is possible? What am I not seeing yet? The next day, I saw this article about a woman who retired in Mexico on her fixed income.
Wow.
And I was like, what? Number one, Mexico, really?
Mhm.
But then the allure of being able to live on our fixed income so that I had
Mhm.
time to do the things that I was really passionate about, to have more of a life with my husband,
Mhm.
it helped me get over myself and get over the Mexico thing
Yeah.
long enough to do some research and to challenge my assumptions.
Mhm.
And lo and behold, we created a checklist of what we wanted our life to look like, from absolute have to holy shit, it'd be amazing if. And when I started doing research, I'd already checked the box for Mexico in terms of financial. The next thing was climate, because I'm a wuss. I do not want extreme weather on either end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And that is what led me to the Lake Chapala area, because National Geographic showed it as one of the top best climates in the
Wow.
world.
That's awesome.
So again, it got me even more curious. And then it was
Yeah.
like, of course, everyone's immediate reaction was, you can't move to Mexico. It's not safe.
Eh.
So safety was a big factor. And of
Mhm.
course, when I really did my research, it was a lot safer than where I was living. And we've been here over 3 years, and we've
Wow.
seen no evidence of violence. None.
Yeah.
None. We
Wow.
feel safer here than we did before. And there were some other things. But then the holy shit, it would be amazing if was water and mountains.
Mhm.
I'm looking out my window at the longest lake, freshwater lake in Mexico, 50
Wow.
miles.
Mhm.
And we're right up against one mountain range, and right across the lake is another mountain range.
Wow.
So we've got like every single box checked. It's just a powerful example that when something feels impossible, it usually is just a story
Yeah.
based on the past, based on assumptions.
Mhm.
And then there's all the people that are going to say, you're going to do what? You can't
Yeah.
do that. And
Yeah,
just
we get so
getting,
caught up in what's practical. Oh, it's not practical.
but when we're talking about our legacy,
Mhm.
again, it's not someday, it's now.
Yeah.
I can't say that every day I look back at every decision and it totally aligns with what I want my legacy to be, what I want to be known for. But I'd say a good 90%,
Wow.
which
Yeah.
that would never have happened.
That's the thing.
And
If
I
you
have
think if you had
some
stayed in LA,
moments.
you wouldn't have written your book. You wouldn't have done. Since I've known you, I've known the new cat and the Mexico cat, not the LA cat. But I know since I've known you in the short time I've known you, I know you've written the book. You've done TED Talks. You've done speaking. Do you think all that would have happened had you just stayed with the status quo in LA?
No, no way. First off, to write a book, everyone had said for so long, Kat, you got to write a book. You have so
Yep.
many stories, so many blah, blah, blah. Write a book that's going to be impactful requires a lot of reflection, at least the kind of book I wanted to create.
Yeah.
To have the time to really reflect on what were the things that I did that helped me do the seemingly impossible over and over again.
Yeah.
And to be able to put that in a way that other people could apply that in their own life if they choose to. So, no, it never would have happened.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
again, the speaking really has come out of writing the book in terms of me getting clarity around what it is I want to speak about, what I do think will be actionable by other people.
Wow. That's so cool. But now we had COVID. That was like wake up call, right? Assuming we don't need another pandemic to wake us up. Do you think what else could we do? Is it just a matter of slowing down? Because you say if you don't have time for that reflection, if you don't get out of the day-to-day craziness, how do you even start to think about living your legacy?
It has to be a conscious choice. Now, we don't have COVID, but I think you might agree, Lou, that we have some disruption going on in the world.
Indeed. Yeah.
And that disruption can be a catalyst
Mm-hmm.
for self-reflection.
Yeah.
Again, like what's really important to me and how am I going to live that out in the middle of all this disruption?
Mm-hmm.
And that requires, from my perspective, that we look at disruption as our best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Now that some people would say that's a bit radical.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yep. And if we embrace that disruption, like for me, it was COVID.
Yeah.
But again, we have lots of disruption going on right now that is causing people a lot of distress
And anxiety.
and second thoughts and, oh my God, oh shit moments.
Yep.
How is this going to impact my legacy, as in what I want to do right now that's going to be meaningful and make a difference in the world?
Yeah.
So when we embrace disruption, not as a horrible thing, but rather, okay, here's a moment in time where we get to choose.
Yeah.
We get to choose what we want today, tomorrow, and the next day to look like. And if it's not what we're doing right now, or maybe we're okay with what we're doing now, and maybe there's something else that we would like to do even better. It doesn't have to be that what you're doing is not good or lost its meaning or whatever. It's just we're living different chapters of our life. And if we look at this as, okay, this is the next chapter in my life, what do I want that chapter to look like?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you've heard me before. I have these 4 C's that I talk about in my book, but helped us do that big transition from LA to Mexico, which started with the courage. First C is courage to shift your mindset to it is possible. And then second C being clarity, as in getting clear about what you want your next chapter to look like and why it's so important, which is what leads you to the third C, which is a hell yes commitment.
Commitment.
And once you've got those checked off, okay, it's possible. I believe there is a way to make it possible. This is what I want it to look like. And I'm committed to figuring it out. Then it's just about developing the capacity, which is the 4th C. What is it that I need to do, learn? And trust me, moving to a foreign country, let alone in the middle of a pandemic, there was a lot of stuff we had to do to build the capacity to be able to do it with the bureaucracy of the US, of Mexico, of the pandemic, of learning a new language, a new banking system, a new everything is new.
Yeah.
And I just say, you know what, even if it's not moving to Mexico, with all the disruption going on, we need to be willing to learn into the unknown.
Yeah. And I love how you've turned disruption, which could be a bad thing. You've really found the silver lining in that, in terms of this is an opportunity to reflect, maybe to pause and figure out maybe tomorrow can be different than today.
Yeah, it can be a gift if we look at it that way. What's the gift in this? What's the opportunity? What's the possibility
Yeah.
in it?
Yeah. Very cool. So you mentioned the 4 C's from your book, but talk a little bit more about the book From Doubt to Do and how that came about, and how I know you were finally able to do it from probably just from being in Mexico, but how did it germinate?
Again, once we landed and got a bit grounded in our new reality,
Mm.
I had the time to reflect. So, I'm the Post-it note queen. I don't know if you can see on the wall.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, lots of Post-it notes. I started with creating an outline of the book using Post-it notes. Like, what are the key learnings, the lessons I've learned in my life that have helped me go from impossible to possible? And what stories align with those 4 C's. So I use the 4 C's as a framework.
Yeah.
So each story, while they probably have all 4 C's embedded in them, I highlight one of them with each story to give more substance to it. And there's moments of reflection for the reader as I'm introducing the lessons I learned, asking the reader a question that relates. And then there's a second part to the book. So part one are the stories and whatnot, really the how-tos. But the second part, for each chapter, there's a corollary chapter that is a journal. Because I really believe to make any kind of significant shift,
Yeah.
we need to get all that negative self-talk out of our head onto a piece of paper where we can examine it more objectively and reflect on what else is possible. So I've really created a 2-part book to give people that opportunity to immediately think of how are they going to apply the lessons that are presented throughout the first part. And the stories are inspirational, hopefully motivational, hopefully actionable. The lessons are actionable. And I think that makes the book a little bit unique. A lot of people have, like, they publish an inspirational book, and then they have a separate kind of workbook.
Yeah.
But I thought, what if you just combine them
That makes
into
sense.
one? So it's more of a read chapter, and it could even be good for a book club in that read chapter 1 and then use the prompts in the journal to have further conversation, whether it's a formal book club or for yourself or with a friend or colleague. Because sometimes that helps too, to reinforce, because we can only see what we see. And oftentimes we need somebody else to reflect back to us.
Yeah.
They've
And I love
observed.
that the exercise part of the book. So many times I know for myself, I'll read a book and I have all these ideas and all these things I want to do, but I'll put it down and then I'll just forget about it. But if it's actually part of the book and you're doing the exercises as you go, you could actually put the things into action instead of just throwing the book on a shelf somewhere.
The title is purposeful, From Doubt to Do, how to navigate your pathway to possibility. And the title in itself is really a book summary, if you will.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. And then is your talk, I know it's evolved because we've worked on that together in our public speaking, but is the talk related to the book, or is that now a little bit of a different message?
I talk about legacy in the book.
Yeah.
And I talk about labels in the book. So the title of my upcoming TEDx talk is Labels, Lessons, and Your Legacy.
Oh, we may need to do
So,
another podcast interview when that's done.
yeah, it's very much what we've been talking about,
Mhm.
and with an emphasis on how labels influence your legacy. And the lessons I've learned, I've studied this my whole life, not in an educational institution, but up close and personal. How do labels affect the way
Mhm.
we see ourselves, the way we see other people, how it influences what we choose to do or don't do?
Mhm.
It's interrelated. And okay, labels have never been more toxic than they are today. So it's a timely talk to
Mhm.
really just get real about the power of, as in the toxic power
Yeah.
of labels, if we don't recognize them, let them go, reframe them.
Mhm.
And I'm really hoping that this talk, being timely,
Yeah.
will help people take a pause and think about, like, how are they labeling themselves? How are they labeling other people?
Yeah.
And how is that enhancing or inhibiting our ability to live out our legacy?
Yeah. Oh my God, that's ironic because I just had a call with my coach and I heard myself saying, I want to do this, but I'm too old. My time is past. That's a label that I have to look at and say, I'm sure everybody's gotten to that. Oh, all right. I know I'm not going to pitch for the New York Yankees, but I'm not necessarily too old to do this and this.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah, we
probably a label
all
that I struggle
label. I
with.
mean, we all label ourselves. And I think I'll give you a little spoiler alert. So, the opening line of my talk
Hmm.
is, you will never be good enough.
Oh,
Have you ever thought that, been told that, felt
hmm.
that, limited what's possible because of that?
Yeah.
That's a label that I think everyone at some point in their life can relate with, that can be significantly limiting.
Yeah. Wow. This is great. Really good stuff and very on point as far as this goes. But that's the whole idea is when I think about what do I want people to say about me when I'm gone is what I want them to say about me right now. So I think that's more about,
Exactly. And I think there are the obvious labels. I hear it so much at this
mhm,
stage in my life. I did it myself. Can I really do this at this stage in my life? There's all these things. I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm too fat. I'm too skinny. I'm too whatever.
mhm,
But then there's unconscious labels,
mm,
things we're not even aware of. And I
mhm.
talk about that in the talk because those can be just as toxic.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to hearing the whole thing and tell folks where they can find your book as well, just so that they can check it
Yeah,
out.
obviously it's available anywhere.
Hmm.
That being said, it is available on my website,
Yeah.
catosullivan.com, and that's cat with the K.
Hmm.
And I also have a media page, which has, I just posted information about the TEDx talk for
Yeah.
people that want to connect with me so that when it does come out, they'll be the first to get the link.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
excellent. Oh, thank you so much, Kat. It's such a pleasure speaking with you. I will ask one other fun question that I ask everybody. Okay, the movie's coming out, the Kat O'Sullivan story. Who do you want to play you in the story of your life?
Oh, man.
It's a tough one, right?
That is a tough one.
I don't know if anybody can really capture your essence or not. So maybe
It would have to
you'll have
be
to do it yourself.
somebody that's irreverent, that's a bit on the irreverent side. So I'm thinking probably some women stand-up comedians that are not in my head at the moment. Actually, maybe Tina Fey,
There you go.
okay?
Perfect.
Because
Yeah.
I live by her mantra, say
Mhm.
yes and figure it out later.
Yeah. That's awesome and very apropos as we approach the 50th anniversary of Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
Tina
Yeah.
Fey. Okay, we'll be looking for that in the movies coming to a theater near you. But but before that happens, the talk, the book, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And I hope everybody takes a moment to pause and think about living their legacy. Thank you.
Let's go for it.
Yeah.